Is 6:01 p.m. It appears we do have a quorum. Ms. Clerk, are we ready to go?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we are going to go ahead and convene this meeting of the Board of Directors of East Bay Community Energy. I have 6:01 p.m. Today is Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. And I will just say that this board meeting is being conducted pursuant to provisions of the Brown Act to facilitate teleconferencing to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission at public meetings. AB 361 suspends some Brown Act rules related to teleconferencing, but continues to require that we notice meetings in advance and allow the public to participate. East Bay Community Energy has met all applicable notice requirements. We're using the Zoom meeting platform. There's information on Zoom on the website at the address listed on the agenda. During the meeting, if you wish to be recognized, use the raise hand feature in the participants button in Zoom. If you're using the telephone only, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you very much. Olympia County.
I believe Newark is in the waiting room.
I see myself.
Okay, that's strange. Okay. Redundancy. Okay.
Thank you. Albany. Here. Berkeley. Berkeley. Dublin.
Here.
Fremont.
Here.
Hayward.
Present.
Livermore.
Here.
Newark.
Here.
Oakland. Here. Seymour.
Here.
Pleasanton. Pleasanton. Come back to Pleasanton.
Present. I'm here.
Thank you. Tracy.
Present.
Union City. Community Advisory Committee. San Leandro.
Present.
Here we go.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. That'll bring us to our Pledge of Allegiance. And Member Tiedemann, this will be a test to see if you can guide us through the Pledge of Allegiance as we have a flag in the room. Get us back in-person order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for that pop quiz. Now is the time for public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any EBC related matters that are not otherwise on the meeting agenda. And I detailed how you would be able to raise your hand a little bit earlier. So first I'll ask the clerk if anyone has submitted electronic comment.
There are no written public comments that have been submitted.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and recognize the speaker with the raised hand for 2 minutes, please.
Jessica Tovar, recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, Jessica Tovar with the East Bay Clean Power Alliance, and I wanted to make a comment specifically on net energy metering. I don't know if you all are aware of the recent CPUC proposed decision, which is to slash by 75% the incentives that people could get from producing excess solar from rooftop ground mount local solar. And that is a direct attack on building out local clean energy. And I know that this body has passed a resolution in support of defending net energy metering. And I really hope that you continue to take action in support of these policies that advance local clean energy. So I wanted to uplift that. That vote is expected to happen December 15th at the CPUC. Another issue I want to address has to do with the Community Advisory Committee, and specifically that when we advocated for an East Bay Community Energy Program, we advocated for community to be able to weigh in along with the board. And It's very important to value our stakeholders within the community. That is how we've been able to shape such a strong community choice program and policies that actually advance energy needs to build resilience, clean energy jobs, and specifically calling out the local development business plan, which East Bay Community Energy is unique in having this roadmap to create that local clean energy future that we are trying to build. So I just want to uplift the power of the Community Advisory Committee because they represent energy democracy in this space, and they should be appreciated for that. Bring power to the people.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Speaker. Next up, we have our consent agenda. Colleagues, is there anyone who wishes to poll or discuss any item from the consent before we take a motion? Member Hannon?
Yes, Madam Chair, could we please poll item number 11, please?
Sure. Would you like to pull it, or do you just want to make comments before we consider it?
No, I wanted it pulled, Madam Chair, only to get further clarification and understanding, because it seems to be quite a sizable amendment to the contract of almost $175,000. Just for full transparency to those that are watching, I just want to have staff maybe provide a little bit more detail as to what the purpose and hoped for of this project are.
Okay, very good. So we'll go ahead and consider items 4 through 10 on the consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion, let's go ahead and go to public comment. Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment on the consent agenda?
No public comment has been, no written public comment has been submitted for this item.
Okay, good. You can go ahead and recognize Jim Luce for 2 minutes.
Lutz, you recognize for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Oh. I had a question on one of the items in the consent, item 6, contracts entered into. It's not a big deal, but Red Oak Engineering and Consulting in Tennessee for political consulting. And it was just political consulting in Tennessee. What's that? It was just a question.
Okay,
That's
thank you, Mr. Luce, and I will turn it over to staff if someone is able to elaborate. Howard, can you give us details on that political consulting contract?
I believe the Red Oak Engineering Consulting contract is related to some political lobbying efforts that we had. I may need to follow up and confirm that. I'm not intimately familiar with that contract, but I think based off of where it's based in Tennessee, that's what that was for, and that assisted in some of our discussions with the city of Stockton actually as well.
So what would be the purpose in Tennessee for us to have political lobbying?
So I think the Tennessee is actually just happen chance of where that person is based, so it's not associated with the actual work.
Okay, so that's just the location.
Yeah, I think in light of
For work that was done.
virtual and such.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody who was based in Tennessee was actually working on California-based.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Colleagues, we will bring it back to the consent agenda, and we're considering items 4 through 10. Member Hannon, would you like to make a motion on those consent items?
Yes, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve items 4 through 10.
Very good, thank you. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Oh, I have a second in the room from Member Tiedemann. We have a motion from Director Hannon and a second from Director Tiedemann. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Alameda County, Albany,
Yes.
Berkeley, Dublin,
Yes.
Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Aye.
Livermore,
Aye.
Newark,
Aye.
Oakland,
Aye.
Piedmont,
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City, Sam Leandro,
Yes.
here we go.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved, at least those items, items 4 through 10.
Very good. So that'll, we will come back to item 11, which is the sixth dimension contract amendment. And I will turn it over to staff to see if they can give us some details on this contract.
Absolutely. Sixth Dimension is a company that we've contracted with to provide services related to contract.
You can have some. I won't need all.
Sixth Dimension is a company that we've contracted for construction management services for a new building at 251 8th Street. The reason for the substantive increase in the dollars up to about $388,000, while it is a substantive increase, it is sort of in line with what's expected. When we initially signed the contract, we were still scoping out the design and work for the building and what services we would need in terms of renovation. Now that we've done some of the preliminary design work and have a better sense of what the estimated cost will be, then you start getting more refined numbers. For example, for the Sixth Dimension contract, there was another one for our architect as well, and so that number also increased for the very same reason, which is you get a further, more refined estimate on the actual renovation work that's going to be done, and then you can refine sort of what are the soft costs and project management costs associated with that. I'd also just note that Sixth Dimension is helping us do some of the boots on the ground work with that building itself. So things like setting up our alarm system. There was a little bit of like plumbing and water work there that was needed. So that they're pretty hands-on and sort of our construction sort of technical expertise with that building right now.
And were there any surprises with the seismic or any other big parts of the building that we need to remediate that they're helping with?
No, I wouldn't say seismic or anything structural that we're aware of at this stage. There's still some more evaluation work that will happen as we move forward with design and actual construction. I will say there is more work to be done on the windows and on the HVAC system, unfortunately. While there were new units installed prior to our purchasing the building, upon further diligence, just some of the roofing membrane insulation was insufficient. So things like when you turn on the heating system, it really shook the building and the floors. And so there is work to be done from an energy efficiency and from a mechanical perspective on the HVAC ducts. We may actually downsize some of those units to be more energy efficient while replacing and upgrading some of the windows. So there are some potential increased costs that we'll bring forward to the board in the future, but that was some of the evaluation we've done so far.
Is the HVAC electrified?
And we are targeting LEED certification. So part of the work is absolutely upgrading some of those aspects to make sure that we are electrified as much as possible.
Great, I heard there's some good incentives out there. Member Hannon, does that answer your questions on this contract?
Yes, thanks, Howard. Just a couple quick follow-ups, Howard. In the staff memo, it says that EBCE staff elected not to include a scope of work related to the design and construction of the property. Was that because it was still kind of early in the process and some of the work simply wasn't known at that time?
That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, we contracted with Sixth Dimension before we even selected the architect. So we certainly had just preliminary thoughts as to the exact type of work that was done there. Now that we brought KTA on board, which is our architect and engineer, that's the company that has actually done some of that conceptual design work and has started to do the actual designs themselves that are informing this contract as well.
It might be helpful, Howard, because I heard you mention that there's some additional work that may need to be done in the near future. That's part of these reports, that if staff has some idea or ballpark figure as to what the anticipated future costs might be for completion of the project, you might want to put that as a footnote in there, just so that folks know that this is not going to be the complete cost of the project, that we anticipate that there may be additional costs, and we would estimate those costs may be in the range of, just so that, we're allowing our residents to know that we're only like in phase one of a number of phases to get this project completed, and they have a kind of a full scope of what this project might cost. With Howard's explanation, Madam Chair, I'm ready to move item 11 unless there's any other questions.
Very good. Members, there is a motion on the table for item 11. Is there any?
Second.
I have a second from Member Cox from Fremont. We have a motion from Member Hannon, a second from Member Cox. Colleagues, please raise your hand if you'd like to discuss this any further. Seeing no further discussion, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll on item 11.
Great, thank you very much. Alameda County. Albany,
Yes.
Berkeley, Dublin,
Yes.
Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Aye.
Livermore.
Aye. Or yes.
Thank you. Newark,
Aye.
Oakland. Aye. Piedmont. Pleasanton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City, San Leandro,
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. That would bring us to the CEO report. Our CEO is traveling at the moment, so our COO is going to deliver the CEO report.
Yes.
Over to you, Howard.
Thank you. So we had three various board meetings over the month of October. One was the executive committee meeting that was held on October 28th, where we reviewed the Healthy Communities Partnership. One of the items that we'll review this evening as well, along with the community electrification financing program. The next meeting will be on Friday, December 2nd at 12 p.m. We also had the FAP and the MRL subcommittee meetings. Both were held on November 4th. And we reviewed a number of items, some of which will be in this evening's board agenda as well. Both of those subcommittees do not have meetings scheduled next. They will be held in 2023. We typically do those every 2 months. And we will await those committees being fully seated before we determine the schedule to make sure board members have availability there. In terms of new staff, we had one additional staff member join us. His name is Alvin Lin. He's joining us as an account services analyst. He started on October 31st on Halloween. Comes to us with an engineering background at a civil and environmental consulting company where he was at for about 4 years. And he's focused really on some of the data analysis for the account services team. He is a proud graduate of UC Davis. And then the last update I have to provide is on the marketing front related to the Renewable 100 transition. We had 4 cities, Berkeley, Dublin, Emeryville, and San Leandro, continue to do some transitioning to Renewable 100. Berkeley, Dublin, and San Leandro, it was commercial only in October. And then Emeryville is both residential and commercial over the month of October. In terms of opt-out rates since August, so sort of the changes in opt-outs, none of which are particularly noteworthy, relatively small changes in opt-outs, and for opt-downs to Bright Choice, relatively small percentages, but I think that that's a good sign of customer engagement, understanding what changes are occurring and making an active decision to switch from Renewable 100 to Bright Choice. But again, relatively small percentage in the grand scheme of things. That is it for the CEO report.
Thank you very much. Member Cal, question for COO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. I've discussed with our staff at City of Oakland, and we are starting a process which could take several months to move to Renewable 100 for our residential customers initially, and maybe eventually our commercial customers. So that process is beginning.
That's extremely exciting, Member Cal. Is there anyone else with questions or comments on the CEO report? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move along to the Community Advisory Committee. Chair Eldred, I saw you here.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking this way because that's where my other monitor is. The Community Advisory Committee met on Monday. We provided an update on the upcoming end of the state of emergency and the various potential ramifications of that for meetings starting in March. We do look forward to hearing what the board decides on that, and there are concerns about travel times and distance and that kind of thing, which I'm sure is shared by members of this body as well. We provided some highlights from the past month's legislative summary and had a discussion around the upcoming exec committee meeting, and everything else is on tonight's agenda. So that is all.
Great, thank you. Any questions for our CAC chair? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on, and we're on item 14. This is the Healthy Communities Partnership, and I've asked staff to contain all of their presentations tonight to 10 minutes, as we have several items to go through tonight. So I will turn it over to staff to please present on item 14.
Thank you. I will be succinct with this. Adrian, if you can pull up the presentation. There are just 3 slides to go over. A slide just kind of covering the high-level goals that we're pursuing. A slide on sort of aligning to EBC scope to our expertise, and then a little bit more on the partnership framework. This is an action item. While we're not seeking approval for any contract or explicit dollars out the door, we are seeking approval from the board on the direction that staff is proposing to look at a program which we're pretty excited about in terms of home electrification. So it is approval to pursue an idea to deliver 1,000 home electrification retrofits to households where one or more resident suffers from asthma, with an explicit emphasis on low income and disadvantaged communities. We want to establish partnerships both on the health and research front, and also make sure that we are establishing partnerships that will help us deploy these types of retrofits. This is a bit of a follow-up from a previous proposal related to a health-related grant. We wanted to make sure that we align this to sort of what EBC is able to do from an electrification standpoint. If you go to the next slide, Adrian, a little bit more about that scoping. What we're really focusing on is EBC funding and engagement on funding electrification retrofits, specifically induction cooking and heat pumps. We're looking to recruit partners, both on the research side of things that can evaluate the impact of these types of retrofits on impacted communities and seeing what that can do to help improve certain health conditions such as asthma. Those partnerships may include EPA, Health and Human Services, California ARB, Health and Climate Plan. So we want to take a broad approach to the various established health organizations that can help us evaluate the impacts that this type of program can have. And then the last slide, Adrian, please. The framework that we're looking to pursue here is, and the specific board action that we're seeking is approval to direct staff to move forward to develop a full proposal to implement what we call a Healthy Communities Partnership, where EBC is funding up to $15 million towards home electrification projects that benefit residents with asthma. The funding would occur over the next 3 years. As I noted before, this is just an approval on the direction of staff to pursue and develop a full proposal and program. We will return to the board of directors for review of that program once we have the staff come up with a more detailed proposal, most likely in the early 2023 timeframe. The funding, as noted, we want to allocate up to $15 million for electrification projects. We came up with that number. It is in line with what we budgeted and received approval on earlier this year. And that number totals $15 million. The estimate is about 1,000 participants, looking at probably $10,000 incentives and $5,000 incentives, low interest rates. Program parameters, we want to prioritize low-income households and multifamily housing. And we do want to really look at partnerships with local, state, and federal agencies focused on public health in addition to the home electrification aspects. We're hoping that we can support the acquisition of patients that are actually with public health partners. And we also want to partner with these public health partners to look at research and evaluate the long-term benefits of these types of installations and retrofits. That's it in a nutshell. I'll comment.
Very good. Are there any questions for staff on this item? Member Cal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm happy to support this, of course, but I did have a question, and I'm not a medical professional, but I know there are other upper respiratory diseases that some of which may also be related to indoor air quality, others of which may not be related. And so I would suggest that when it comes back to us, I guess something's going to come back to us with a more fuller program proposal, that staff consult with medical experts, and in addition to asthma, include other respiratory diseases that do relate to, have a relationship with indoor air quality. That's okay.
Yep, okay. I think it makes sense.
And then on the low-income households, multifamily. So the property owner is the person, this is the question, is the person we'd be interacting with, right? Or, I mean, if we're getting, that's the question. How is this going to actually happen?
In terms of the deployment of the retrofits themselves?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the fuller proposal. We certainly want to evaluate what is the most efficient way to go out to market and actually, engage with customers directly. I think we are thinking of different potential partnerships with installers, developers on avenues to actually, get the installations in place. We're thinking about our own customer engagement avenues. So I think, we are on the earlier stage of what is the most efficient way to do the installations themselves. And we've thought thus far more about the general size of the population that we want to address. I think we want to spend the time to evaluate, how we actually go and do these types of installations, how we see proposals, things like that.
Okay, and would nonprofit affordable housing operators be one of the folks that would be reached out to?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, with multifamily housing, I think to your direct question, yes, it's not always the resident that is the owner of the building. So we have to think about those avenues where we can engage with the owner as well as the resident to be efficient.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great, and I see a hand raised by Chair Aldred.
This is a very, very directional microphone. I forgot about that. And thank you, Chair Martinez. So just the slides are a little bit different from Monday. So I just want to clarify, before the slide said low income and disadvantaged communities, and now it says low income and multifamily housing. And so I just want to clarify which target population we are intending to prioritize, because while there's overlap, they're definitely not entirely interchangeable groups.
Yeah, I don't know that was a very explicit change. That may have just been slight version control issues, but I think low-income households should cover disadvantaged communities. I know that the definition of disadvantaged communities has shifted over different phases of time. So I don't know that disadvantaged communities would, the fact that we didn't include that doesn't mean that we're not seeking to address that population.
Okay, so low income and multifamily housing, I mean, low income is one of the indicators for disadvantaged communities, but it's not inclusive. It just wanted to get clarity because it was different. And you answered the question on housing, on renters. So thank you very much.
All right, Director Hannan.
Howard, thanks for the report. A couple quick questions. One, as we make these improvements to multifamily units, certainly there's a benefit to the landlord because we're making improvements to a unit to which they own. Maybe consider as we make those improvements that those units be, because rental situations are transitory in nature, people come and go, that we make it conditional upon the improvement that unit be set aside for a tenant that may now or in the future suffer from asthma, since we've made those improvements to that rental unit. If that's something that we could maybe codify in the agreement with the landlord, that might be helpful.
Makes sense to me in concept. I think this is an avenue we certainly want to evaluate further and understand what are the practical limitations of requiring an owner to then, require the renter to be somebody that's suffering from asthma or different sort of, health illness that is related to this issue. I think I get the point. So I think we'll certainly try to, see what we can do to implement that type of a requirement. I just want to be cautious to think about whether that's realistic when working with an owner, and whether that's something that we can do.
And then my other comment, Howard, was maybe to consider, senior community centers where we have a lot of seniors who are vulnerable with health issues that spend a considerable amount of their day at senior centers. Maybe look at that as an opportunity as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Director Marquez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Can you briefly just reiterate the rollout, the RFP process, and what the expected timeline is? And will staff be proposing recommendations to the board, or how we actually vote on which entities will receive the contracts?
I think the rollout of the RFP is still in the planning process, but I would anticipate sometime in the next couple of months we'll be constructing that, thinking about how to go out to market, engage with various partners. We will, before signing any contracts and formally committing any dollars, we would certainly bring something forward to the board, both for discussion and approval, explicit approval on signing an agreement with any party.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no more hands raised, we'll go ahead and take public comment. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know if those hands are old hands up there.
Those are actually those mystery hands just appear up there, and that's why I've got my laptop and we've got our clerk on top of those hands. There's a glitch with our monitor in the in-person location where it looks like folks have their hands raised, but they don't.
Okay, well, I would Anna Olivia mentioned about disadvantaged communities. I think it's important to have explicit reference to that. I mean, that's defined by the Air Resources Board, and it relates in large part to air quality, outdoor air quality, but that relates to asthma as well. So if people are struggling with outdoor air quality impacting asthma, all the more reason to have better indoor air quality for those people. So I think we should have explicit reference to disadvantaged communities as one of the areas.
Yeah, I guess maybe my point earlier was by listing low income housing and not listing disadvantaged communities, we would certainly still look to target disadvantaged communities. By adding that term in, I'm not sure if there's direction of the board to limit our prioritization just to disadvantaged communities.
That's not what I was saying, but that could just be one of the emphases. Emphases, is that a word? Emphases?
Priorities. So yeah, I agree with Member Cal, because disadvantaged communities is a state definition, as for the Air Resources Board. So prioritizing low-income households, multifamily housing, and disadvantaged communities, I think that's something that we have discussed as a board. And now let's go ahead and take a break for public comment. Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment on this item?
There has been no written public comment submitted for this item.
Okay, we'll go ahead and recognize speakers with their hands raised for 2 minutes each, please.
Great, thank you very much. Jessica Tovar, you recognized for 2 minutes.
Hi, Jessica Tovar, on behalf of the East Bay Power Alliance. First, I want to appreciate the staff and the board. This proposal has morphed as a result of input from various members of the public, stakeholders, the committee, as well as many board members here. And I want to just say that we're moving in the right direction when it comes to actually addressing energy needs in the community. We do have several questions that were asked at the Community Advisory Committee. And I hear, that it's not just asthma, but that it can be other kind of lung diseases or illnesses that people face within EBCE territory that we should be addressing. We want to make sure that $15 million should be earmarked for not only disadvantaged communities that are represented on Cal Enviro screen, but that all the cities in EBCE territory have some kind of disadvantaged community that might not be represented in that way. As a track, and we want to see a detailed budget, certainly where the money is going and who, be able to see who, what other agencies we're working with, RFPs that are issued as well, and see that the community, both the community and the board work together in definitely identifying, you know, those that are recipients of the work, for example. And then the other thing we wanted to see was just more metrics and reporting on how the progress of this program is going along the way. And again, I just want to echo that we are moving in the right direction. And I want to appreciate that on behalf of everyone at East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no further public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Chair Eldred.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. So I do want to open saying that the Community Advisory Committee had a really robust discussion on this, and universally we're acknowledging how much this proposal has changed and grown with the input from this board, from the public, from the CAC, and that we did vote unanimously to support staff's recommendation to develop this program. Many of the things that Jessica Tovar brought up were part of the presentation that we received. It really was, it was a fantastic in-depth presentation. And there were a few things that ideas came up, but really want to express wholehearted support for this recommendation. The being specific about disadvantaged communities and communities in various regions that might fall just short, but are still heavily impacted, we think should also be considered. Looking at partnership with other organizations who are already going into some of these communities, and really wanting to see things around the RFP, but universally support this and really want to congratulate staff on all their hard work and what a great public engagement process it's been.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Any other folks want to discuss this item? And we talked about it quite a bit over the last months, back since June, actually. So we've all had an opportunity to pipe in, I think, and this is the culmination of everyone's input. So I also would like to thank the CAC, thank the members of the public who spoke up, and members of the board, and especially staff for putting together this proposal. Director Marquez.
Chair, I'm happy to move the item with memorializing the discussion with regard to disadvantaged communities, making sure that that's clearly spelled out.
Seconded.
Very good. You have a motion from Director Marquez, a second from Director Arreola. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Evelyn. Dublin. Back to Dublin.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Fremont.
Yes. Fremont.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Thank you. Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City. San Leandro.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
Thank you. Next up is fiscal year 2021-2022 financial audit. This is an informational item, but I'll turn it over to staff to go ahead and present, please.
Hi. This is Jason Bartlett, Senior Finance Manager at BC. I will be presenting on the side along with our auditor. Every year, EBC hires an independent accounting firm to conduct an audit of our
Hey, Jason, I'm gonna stop you just for a second because your audio is cutting in and out. Would you mind turning off your camera, and hopefully that'll afford you enough bandwidth that we can hear you a bit better.
Very good. I apologize. There does seem to be an echo coming through as well. The center possibly.
Still a little bit choppy.
I wonder if you turn down your volume, that may help with the echo. I don't know if that's what's feeding into it at all.
The echo is from the open center feed.
Oh, if we turn down our volume, might.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, that sounds much better on my end. Is that more clear for everyone else? Great, excellent, thank you. So every year, EBC conducts we hire an outside accounting firm to conduct an audit of our financial statements. We have contracted with Paccetti and Brinker. They have been our auditor for the last several years, and so they have also conducted this fiscal year's ending June 30th of 2022. So the financial audit does a deep depth not only into the finances, but also into the controls and policies and practices that surround our financial activities. The results of this audit have confirmed that we have seen approximately a $60.6 million increase in net position through the year, and some details of which, as related to the various financial statements, such as the balance sheet and the income statement, are presented in the memo. I can go through them in excruciating detail, but provided to say that we have performed, as I said, in a positive direction with our net position fiscal year. The more important thing that the audit is going to present is not just our financial statements, as I stated earlier, reflects our controls and policies around how we govern our finances. And so I think that's probably going to be the more issue to discuss. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Brett Bradford, who is the lead on the audit team. And he has a presentation that can speak to those matters. Brett, are you on the call here?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Bartlett. Hello, it is good to be back once again. I'm the partner with Paccetti and Brinker. Jason, if you could please advance the slide, or whomever has control there. Just a quick little background on myself. This is very similar to materials provided in our previous reports, just changing the number of years. We're currently working with several CCAs throughout the state, and Ali is not on the Zoom today, but she.
You just what? I just farted on accident. Yeah. She shut the door. You picked it up.
I'm gonna give somebody opportunity to mute. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want your stinky butt.
All right. See ya.
Take a look at what you do.
Director Cox, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
All right. And if you could advance to the next slide, please. The audit is complete, and we've reported the following. Both these are good things. We are using a little bit of auditor speak here. An unmodified opinion, which means based on our audit, the financial statements are materially accurate. And also, no significant deficiencies or material weakness in internal controls have been identified. Both very good outcomes and consistent with the prior year. If you could advance, please, again. So this slide just takes us through relative roles and responsibilities. I know these are reiterations of prior year slides. As I always say, boring auditor report is a good report. Management is responsible for preparing the financial statements and establishing a system of internal control. And then we're responsible for conducting the audit as an independent entity. We do that by considering the risks of material misstatement in the financial statements. We look at internal controls relevant to the preparation of the financial statements. We perform tests of year-end balances based on our risk assessment. And then we also evaluate the adequacy of disclosures. Jason and his team, they draft the financials, which is great. It's not always the case. Sometimes clients do need assistance with that. We love it when we have a situation where the client is able to draft the financials because it just helps to once more strengthen our independence from the process. And if we could advance, please. So this next couple slides take us through our risk assessment for this year's audit. Consider the ongoing impact of the COVID situation, even though we appear to be emerging from that to some extent. Revenue recognition, always a high priority. That means accounts receivable and accrued revenue exist and are complete. So we do that by testing a sample of customer billings. We relate total cash received during the year to revenue. And we review revenue recognition through the year end and the method for determining that amount. That's accrued revenue, which represents revenue earned but not yet billed at year end. For cash, we send confirmations directly to financial institutions. If you could advance, please. Other areas of significant focus: accrued cost of electricity. In addition to making sure that the revenue side of the equation is correct, we want to make sure that all the costs are captured for the appropriate period as well. So review subsequent bills from electricity providers and cash payments to make sure that we've scooped up all of the electricity costs. We also take a look at the accrued rec expense, which is the result of an estimate and a true-up process that Jason and his team go through. We look at supplier security deposits, review contracts, and determine the completeness of the amounts recorded. And then again, we make sure that the financial statement note disclosures are complete and without bias. And we have a new item here this year, which is the single audit. And that was performed in response to the receipt of the federal funds to the CAP program. Those funds flow through the state, but they retain their federal character, and they trigger the single audit, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, encountered before. It's a very prescribed audit that needs to be conducted in accordance with very strict guidelines provided by the federal government. And that had a good outcome as well, we're happy to say. And we'll go forward. Our auditing standards also require that we make certain board communications. So that's what we're going through on the next few slides here. Significant accounting policies adopted by EBC throughout the periods audited appeared appropriate and consistently applied. The alternative treatments of accounting principles for material items in the financial statements were discussed with management. We did not propose any adjustments to the financial statements, and we did not identify any significant or unusual transactions or applications of accounting principles where a lack of authoritative guidance exists. This is a good one. There were no disagreements with management concerning the scope of our audit, the application of accounting principles, or the basis for management's judgments on any significant matters. And we did not encounter any difficulties in dealing with management during the performance of our audit. We can advance. At the end of the presentation, we did meet with the audit committee recently and throughout the process to keep them up to date on where things stood. So we appreciate them providing their time for those meetings. I'm happy to answer any questions about the audit at this time.
Great, thank you, Jason and Brett. Colleagues, are there any questions for staff or for our auditor? Seeing none, Director Hannon, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Just a real quick thank you to staff. It's always a cumbersome process to go through any audit, especially when it comes to financials. And just want to take a moment to commend staff for, again, another outstanding audit performance. Just good job, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Very good, and we'll you can take more accolades in a second too after public comment. Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment on this item?
No public comment has been submitted for this item.
All right, and I will remind the public that you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you would like to speak on this item, or if you're calling in, press *9 to raise your hand in the app. And seeing no hands raised, we will go ahead and conclude public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. I too will agree with Director Hannon and thank staff for the tremendous amount of work that comes to get an unmodified opinion and no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control, which is always, I know myself and all of my colleagues having served in our cities, respective cities, and on various boards know that this is exactly what we want. So we're much appreciation to staff and to the auditors as well. This is a very good outcome. And this is an informational item, so we don't need to take action. Also, thank you to our finance committee for reviewing this and any ad hoc committees that had to check in on this along the way. That will bring us next to our financial reserve contribution. This one is an action item, and this is item 16. And I'll turn this one over to staff presentation on this one.
Thank you. Yes, this is Tim Bartlett on this one. Excuse me for a moment. I'm scrolling through the agenda to get to this one. Here it is. Great. Excellent. So this does also tie to our audit, as it the audit by which provides the methodology, but to determine how much money we have that can be capable to transfer to reserve funds. And so after the audit, our typical process is then to recommend a reserve fund allocation. We have a fairly determined and robust methodology by which we determine the actual dollar amounts. If you could go to the next page, please. There we are. And table 1 kind of outlines this. And the overall process is basically we take all of our convertible assets from our balance sheet. So this is pretty much anything that is cash or can be converted to cash pretty readily. And we deduct from that our outstanding liabilities, as well as any deferred revenue resources from our GASB 62 rate stabilization fund. That gives us a net amount by which we further deduct from that what we already hold in reserves, because that is held within the assets themselves. And then, of course, we do have our local development fund balance that as of June 30th, 2022, that fund balance was $17 million plus dollars. And we pulled that aside because that is money that we've allocated and have committed to local development programs. So from this balance, we get to a number that is about $65.7 million. If there seems to be a need for working capital that we need to hold, so if we're anticipating large energy payments or something coming soon, we usually make the recommendation to withhold that here, but this year there aren't any. We have significant amount of liquidity available to cover such working capital needs. So we are recommending that we contribute the entire amount that is available to the reserve fund. This would then put the new reserve balance at the number you see there, which is 155.9 million, thereabouts. And good news, this gets us above our minimum target requirement for our reserve policy of 25% of operating expenses. This will actually put us pretty close to 28%. And that makes us compliant with our internal policies, and as well establishes a very healthy reserve balance that we can use going forward to secure our financial prospects. And so at this point, there is no financial impact on EBC finances. this money will be held in our accounts and will be held at board discretion. And so that's the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions. I think you're muted, Chairman.
Yep, we were just getting it unmuted. We have to do it very manually in here.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Colleagues, are there any questions regarding the calculations or methodology for this estimated reserve contribution? Okay, seeing no questions, Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment on this item?
So there is no written public comment that has been submitted for this item.
All right, and seeing no hands raised, I'll give it a second. I will go ahead and conclude public comment on this item and bring it back to our board for discussion. Director Nara.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that we make this transfer to our reserve. And I think it's just a huge step that we are now within the range of our stated policy for the percent of the reserve that we want to hold. And I know certainly for my city council, this is a big deal to us because we've been a little hesitant to make sure that EBCE, is financially stable and feel much more comfortable with the ability to get within this reserve and hopefully be able to continue to get to the 50% target over the next few years. So I'm really thrilled as a member of the Finance Committee to be able to make the motion. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Director Lopez, Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you very much, and I'm very thrilled with where we're at. And I think this is the right thing to do, to have this fiscal discipline, and I'd like to second.
Very good. We have a motion on the table by Member Nara and a second on the table by Vice Chair Lopez. I also want to say from the beginning, this agency has had a prudent and fiscally responsible reserve policy. And I was very, very excited to read that we reached the milestone of getting, or we will with this contribution, get over that hump of getting into that area of between 25 and 75% of our reserves capacity. So I'm very, very pleased to support this. And seeing no further hands raised for discussion, we can go ahead and call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont. Thank you. Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City. San Leandro.
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion's approved.
Thank you. And I just wanted to give a thank you to the Finance Administration and Procurement Subcommittee for keeping watch over our dollars and making sure that they're getting to the right place along with staff. Next up, we've got item 17. This is the EV Fast Charging Network Tolling Partners. I'm excited to see this one moving along. I'll turn it over to staff for a presentation.
Great, thank you very much. I'm JP Ross, Vice President of Local Development, and I'll be presenting on this item tonight. This is an action item. We have brought an info item to the board in the past and been discussing this for a while now. So we're excited to make some progress in proposing to you some contracts and some counterparties that we've been in negotiations with for a bit now. So if you go to the next slide, please. So for a little bit of background, EBCE is planning to build a network of publicly available fast charging in partnership with our cities. And that is really focused on enabling a transition to electric vehicles for all of our residents, especially our renters. About 47%, almost half of our residents are renters, and we want to make sure that they have access to charging, just like homeowners do in our service territory. And many of our cities have climate action plans that are really focused on transportation as a very high emitter of both greenhouse gases and criteria pollutants, especially on the medium and heavy duty side. And there are very aggressive goals to electrifying passenger vehicles and medium and heavy duty vehicles, but this proposal is for passenger vehicles. So we're expecting very strong growth in electric vehicles in the near term. So by 2025, we should have about 64,000 electric vehicles registered in Alameda County, and 2,000 by 2030. We've got about 40,000, a little over 40,000 now. And then recently the state passed an initiative, an executive order for all zero emission vehicles to be, or all vehicle sales in the state to be zero emission vehicles by 2035. So there's going to be a lot of growth of electric vehicles, which is great. And we need to enable that transition to enable it equitably. So we want to build about 40 to 50 fast charging hubs across our service territory by 20 to 30. And our design plan for those hubs is to be more like a gas station model than many of the fast chargers that are currently available. So our standard format is 10 chargers that are each capable of charging 2 vehicles simultaneously. So 20 vehicles could charge at a time, similar to a gas station model of providing charging. And there's value there in the density of the network, in the operations and maintenance of that network, as well as in having throughput of vehicles so that if the charging station is full, a new driver coming up, is confident that there will be a charging station opening up soon, and they don't have to wait too long, which is one of the things that we experience at some of the current stations where there's only a few chargers. If we go to the next slide, please. So as discussed, we feel this is extremely important for our renters. Many of our residents are renters, and we're working really closely with our cities, with your agencies, to leverage some of the real estate that you have in the form of publicly owned lots and garages. So these are frequently in downtown areas, close to amenities, which is very important for our for EV drivers, as well as close to our medium and heavy, or sorry, our multifamily units and dwellings. So we've analyzed our multifamily housing stock. Much of it is old. Like 90% of it is 50 years or older. So putting electric vehicle charging infrastructure in these buildings is going to be very difficult. And it's why we're focused on this EV charging plaza model in the public sector, and working with you, your staff, to identify good lots and garages where we can site this infrastructure. So let's see if we, we can go to the next slide, please. So we want to deploy about 40 to 50 of these chargers by 2030. And to do this, we are pursuing a tolling agreement. So this is similar to kind of a solar PPA or a battery, if you will. Another party will own and operate these charging assets for us, and we will essentially be paying them for availability. We'll be paying them to make sure that these charging stations are working and are providing charging sessions to drivers. And that is also tax efficient. As a public agency, we can't take some of the tax credits, which we're certainly keeping our eyes on, and will be available to some of these lots based on their geography and if they're in disadvantaged communities or not, which we're certainly keeping an eye on. And this really can help us accelerate this activity. So we have reached out and talked with multiple counterparties who can bring capital and development experience to help them develop this infrastructure. And we want to do this quickly. We want to do it at high quality and at lower risk, and bringing in developers who have experience developing, owning, and operating these types of assets, we felt was a core requirement for delivering this infrastructure to our residents and to our cities. So next slide, please. So our goal is to develop 40 to 50 of these. We're starting with a portion of that. So tonight we have an action item where we have two resolutions where we're asking the board to authorize our CEO to negotiate and execute these tolling agreements with two different counterparties. And these counterparties have been selected through a competitive solicitation and process. The two counterparties are Calibrant Energy and EV Realty. And that would be to develop up to 15 of these EV fast charging plazas. And we've identified many of these, we've discussed them with you all, and we're excited to progress them. Some of them are quite near term in the development cycle, as we've been doing a lot of pre-development work ourselves. And the fiscal impact of these agreements would be not to exceed of $3 million a year. So we previously allocated a few years ago, $16 million over 4 years for EV charging. And that was to support the Cal EVIP program, where we got some funding in kind from the California Energy Commission. So the proposal here is to kind of extend that level of investment for this publicly available EV charging infrastructure. So the not to exceed here is $3 million a year for the term of the tolling agreement, which is a 10-year tolling agreement. And our intent is that we would not need to spend this money. We will be charging for charging sessions, and our plan is to be lower than the private sector public charging infrastructure. So we do want to provide the charging at a discount. However, we do not expect that we will need to use this full amount, but in an abundance of caution, we want to make sure we're eyes wide open going into this space. And so we are really excited to bring this to you all tonight, and looking forward to hearing your response.
Great. Thank you, JP. Colleagues, are there any questions for staff on the two resolutions before us, or the action that we're being asked to take? I've seen hands, but I do have a question just about how we will be able to ensure that the chargers are in working order, and how much of the time we can expect them to be in working order. I just got a question from someone who lives in Chicago, where a municipality in the north side invested a lot of money in EV chargers, and they were going to have their ribbon cutting, and all the copper wire was ripped out for that day. I don't expect that to happen here, but what level of service are we going to be able to expect from these providers?
Yeah, so the structure of the tolling agreement is that we are only paying for the charging equipment when it is uptime, when it's available. So in service and working and able to provide its primary purpose of charging. And so the structure of the payments is such that, they're available more than 97% of the time, 97% of the hours, then they're receiving 100% of the payment. And then the payments ratchet down fairly aggressively as soon as they fall below that level. So the onus is on the counterparties to keep those chargers available. Otherwise, they're not receiving the payments they need in order to fund the project. And if they fall below those for a certain period of time, then we will have the rights to cancel that, have someone else come over and take ownership and operation of it. We could do that ourselves, but we have recourse if they continue to fall below those availability thresholds.
Great. And can you tell us anything about these two partners that have been selected? Their high points, like what projects that they might already have in our territory?
Yeah, so Calibrant is a joint venture with Siemens and Macquarie. And so the Macquarie is an Australian bank that has a lot of infrastructure development funds. They've also brought in resources from some other EV charging infrastructure management companies, and so have a good amount of experience already in the EV charging development and operation space. EV Realty is a newer company that's come out from the solar and storage development space. And our team has past experience with their team, and they're very experienced in this development space. Right now, we're giving them a smaller portion of the portfolio, but we want to kind of maintain optionality in who we are progressing this with, because it is a fairly immature space, and it's important to, to make sure we've got some options there.
Great. Well, thank you for answering my questions. Member Tiedemann.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick clarification, which I think we've probably covered in the previous informational versions of this, but are these two agreements covered just the phase one of providing these, which is just a certain category of cities that are going to cover the rest in later agreements?
So this is phase one, which is 15, up to 15 sites of the 40 to 50 that we plan to build. And so we're progressing, pursuing site license agreements with as many cities as we can. There will be some subset of the site licenses that we have that we put into our phase one portfolio. And then we plan to continue to build out after this phase one. Our intent is to get as many site licenses with as many cities as we can into this first round. And, then there'll be a kind of an optimization of which sites we build based on geographic diversity, as well as how they're hitting our other key criteria of being close to multi-family hotspots and other amenities. So, this is phase one of a multi-phase approach.
So, sorry, just to be extra clear, the 40 to 50 within 2030 covers more than just phase one.
That's correct.
Great. This is
only phase one right now.
I mean, we're only authorizing these tolling agreements to cover phase one. So we'll see new tolling agreements when we get to the additional phase.
Assuming that this model works and we want to continue to progress with the same structure, then we would, bring another proposal back to the board for expansion.
And I would just note, I think that approach is prudent in light of, obviously the model of third-party ownership and the model of a tolling arrangement is tried and true in the energy space, but applying it to EV charging infrastructure is somewhat new. So we have developed our own form contracts, borrowing from the various contracts. And so I think it is somewhat of a novel approach to this that we're quite excited by. And to your point, trying to outsource some of the technology and O&M risk to a different party, while we really retain the utilization risk, thinking about setting rates, thinking about how we engage with customers to come to utilize the charging infrastructure.
Thank you for the clarification.
And Member Tiedemann, if you're not aware that the member cities where we are actively pursuing these charging units, those cities have been engaged in the tolling contracts and how this is all going to work. I see a hand raised from Director Cox.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I wanted to ask, what's the, limit on the number of people that can use this charging at the same time?
Yeah, so the standard kind of format of our charging hubs will be 10 chargers that can each charge 2 vehicles simultaneously. So 20 vehicles could be charging simultaneously at any one of these locations. That's our standard. We may need to vary for that. Our first couple of sites do vary from that. We have an Oakland and Livermore project that are slightly bigger than that. We have a Piedmont project that's smaller than that. But our standard framework going forward will be able to charge 20 vehicles simultaneously. And we are bringing in sufficient electricity service and everything necessary so that, we have enough power to deliver that type of charging for 20 vehicles.
Right. And with that network, then you also have another battery backup that keeps the station going for if people are going to be using it in odd hours based on their work schedule or something. Is this something that there's a backup like generator or something that keeps it going for 24 hours?
No, there is electrical service that provides electricity 24/7. So there's no batteries, at least in our current site planning. There's just PG&E service that can deliver sufficient power to simultaneously charge 20 vehicles.
Okay. Is there any contingency plan or any type of, we've had some PG&E, unfortunately, power outages, and just kind of keeping that in line of our rollout plan, that what is kind of the backup at this point?
Yeah,
to promote this.
understood that public safety power shutoffs and grid stability is a concern. In this phase one, we're not building backup power for these sites. I think if that becomes something that we need to do, then we will contemplate that going forward.
But that's not covered, I guess, in your concept or the budget right now that we're approving. So for the 3 million for 10 years, that's 30 million. That we're looking at.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Director Hannon.
JP, just to refresh my memory, your hope is that in the future phases to incorporate other cities within the EBCE territory. Was that my understanding?
That's correct. We'd like to have these in as many cities as we can possibly get them, to have geographic diversity and across all of our territory.
And just speaking on behalf of Newark, and maybe I speak on behalf of my colleagues as well, we would certainly like to see these in our community as well. Certainly let us board members know if there's any apprehension on the part of our staff on having these installed in our communities, because we'd certainly like to be able to advocate on your behalf. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other, Member Cal.
I just wanted to thank JP and his teams for working so closely with Steve Oakland, both with this and the city's own EV action plan that we recently adopted. And I thank you for being so plugged in.
When are we cutting the ribbon on City Center? We got to get this done. Member Monroe.
I had a similar comment. I put my hand up and then put it down because I was going to both compliment JP for the great presentation Monday night at Livermore City Council, in which part of this was included. Really appreciate it. Got a lot of really good feedback. And then I wanted to make the motion, but then I realized we haven't had public comment yet, so I can't. But when the time comes, I would like to. So.
Okay, very good. We'll have 2 resolutions to make motions on, so we can spread the love around. So let's go ahead and check in to see if anyone has submitted public comment on this item.
There has been no public comment submitted for this item.
All right, and members of the public, if you'd like to use the raise hand feature in Zoom to speak on this item, you may do so now. If you're calling in, you can press *9 and that will raise your hand. It will be recognized. And seeing no hands raised, we will go ahead and conclude public comment. And first we will take up the first resolution, which is for Calibrant. Is there a motion for the Calibrant resolution?
I'll make that.
Very good. Yeah. Motion by Member Monroe, and I'm sorry, who was the second?
Teresa Cox, Fremont City Council.
Thank you. And we got a second by Member Cox. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin. Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Hayward.
Aye.
Livermore.
Yes.
Newark.
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy.
Yes.
Union City. San Leandro.
Aye.
Haverhill.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Motion is approved. Okay, so next up, we have an identical resolution, except this one is to authorize a negotiation with a 10-year tolling agreement with an affiliate of EV Realty, Inc. Do I have a motion on this resolution?
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Tiedemann. Is there a second? We have a second by Member Ariola. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Aye.
Fremont,
Yes.
Hayward,
Aye.
Livermore,
Yes.
Newark,
Aye.
Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Aye.
Pleasanton,
Aye.
Tracy,
Yes.
Union City, San Leandro. San Leandro,
Aye.
Emeryville.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Very good, thank you. Now we're up to item 18. We are really flying through this today. Local programs update. So that's you again, Keith.
We can follow instructions.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. I know that for our local programs, we could listen for hours and hours because you do so much. But I appreciate the brevity because of the amount of items we're covering tonight. We're really making our way.
All right, great. So I will wanted to give an update on some new programs that we're working through, well, new and old, but provide you all with an update on some solicitations that we have issued, some items that we'll be coming back to you with. And some of this stuff is fairly new. The first item is not. The first item is a long one victory. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So as you are aware, you gracefully allocated $22.5 million to the local programs budget this year. And I wanted to give an update on some of those activities. Some of this is existing solicitations that are on the market, and some are upcoming kind of program solicitations that we'll be working on. Everything will be coming back to the board to request approval of contracts as we do. But we'll be talking about our energy efficiency and grid services solicitation that's out on the market now, a ride electric e-bike program that we are currently soliciting project proposals for, a zero emissions good movement and electrification loan that we're excited about, and then a municipal loan program, which is really still kind of in formation. Next slide, please. So first is our energy efficiency program. This is something we've given a couple of updates on over time. We did receive approval in August from the Public Utilities Commission for EBCE to elect to administer funding for energy efficiency programs. So that's about $13.5 million in funding over 3 years, where we will be targeting large commercial, high usage customers for energy efficiency projects. And we're also focused on delivering savings during peak hours, during the 4 to 9 window. And so that's something that we're currently have on the market, and we'll be planning to roll out early in 2023. And on top of the state-funded energy efficiency program, we also issued in parallel a grid services program to evaluate and see if we can get some proposals back for additional kind of behavioral or other grid flexible resources that can respond to pricing signals. So we've kind of built a pricing table that we've issued to the market, which is actually focused on not only afternoon peak, but we also experience a morning peak. So as we have more solar and other renewables that are non-dispatchable, the load curve that we have is getting more volatile. And so we actually have a morning and evening peak that we want to address. Those are going to be higher carbon, higher cost hours. And so we're seeing if we can get some proposals back where across residential, commercial, industrial, any customer type, we can kind of get some flexible load management to respond to these pricing signals. So this year, that's a 5-year offer, and soliciting proposals that could come back with both of these tied together, or individual proposals, and potentially even different vendors. So trying to be flexible as we enter this new phase. Next slide, please. So we also have issued a solicitation for an e-bike program calling it the EBCE Ride Electric Program. We did get an allocation this year of $2 million for micromobility, and wanted to put that towards increasing adoption of zero emission, healthy, safe, fun transportation options that are outside of single passenger vehicles. And in this case, we think e-bikes is a great way to invest some of our dollars. And our goal here is to use the $2 million that was allocated this year, but we wanted to do something kind of bigger and longer term than that. So we propose a $2 million budget from this year, as well as allocating from future budget $2 million from FY24 and then FY25, so that we can create a 3-year, $6 million program for e-bikes. So the solicitation that we have put together is for a $4 million incentive program that will help increase adoption, and 40% of those funds will be dedicated to our low-income customers on care rates. And then second to that would be a lending program. So $2 million in total to a lending program where we will have sites where people can come. It's like a library, if you will, borrow a bike for a predetermined amount of time, say 2 weeks or so, where they can use that bike, really thinking and understanding how they can integrate it into their daily life, their commute, their errands, dropping kids off to school, how they would charge it, where they would charge it, and then they would return it back to the site to be kind of maintained and then lent out to somebody else, because our incentives can only go so far. We can't incentivize everybody to get an e-bike, but lots of people who ride e-bikes love them and want to buy them. And so the lending program is a way to kind of stimulate ownership beyond the limits of our ability to incentivize this type of clean transportation. So we'll be getting proposals back for that in January, and we're obviously bringing the contract to you for approval. Next slide, please. So we also have a zero emission medium and heavy duty project loan offer that we released in October. This program is to try to stimulate some medium and heavy duty electrification projects within our service territory. So this part of the market is less mature than passenger EVs. There's not as many vehicles out there. There's not as many projects out there. And a lot of the players in this market are kind of newer players. They may have a harder time accessing capital effectively. And so we, with the budget that you allocated us this year for these types of projects, are offering a $3 million 5% loan for projects that can be installed in our service territory by July of 24, that can deliver a 3-to-1 investment ratio, meaning they're bringing sufficient external capital to the project. And as per the terms of our agreement, labor here would be required to be prevailing wage. This is something that we did with Block Power with our low moderate income electrification program, where we're providing kind of project development capital to a counterparty to develop projects in our service territory. So that's another project that we are evaluating proposals on and plan to bring forward a contract to you all early in 2023. Next slide, please. And the last program here is one that's a little bit more under development. Similarly, figuring out ways that we can deploy our capital to help our cities and residents and businesses effectively adapt to an electrified future, through our work on REACH codes, as well as our municipal electrification technical assistance program. We've found that there could be barriers to actually electrifying buildings on the capital side. And so our plan is to utilize the $2 million in budget that was allocated towards this program in the form of some kind of a loan program, a zero or no interest loan program that we can offer to municipalities for you all to pursue electrification projects. We are aware that you you can go raise cheap capital. That's not an issue, but sometimes that can still be cumbersome, time consuming, may need to be in larger increments than some of these initial electrification projects. And so we think that providing easier to access capital in smaller increments can be helpful. And we've gotten some feedback in initial conversations that it can be, that it can help you in your electrification projects. So we're starting to have conversations with different municipalities about how to structure this. Taking on debt and the big D word can also be problematic. So structuring this is going to be important, and having conversations with you and your staff and your finance departments about how to do that is important. We do have a project from the city of Piedmont, which is interested in electrifying a pool at their municipal pool. And so we want to progress that forward and understand how that would actually work. We can bring that back to you all in December as an action item. It is our plan. And right now we'd be proposing $2 million towards this program. However, if through the course of these conversations and the projects that come to EBCE for funding, we find ourselves exceeding that $2 million budget, then we plan to expand the program and make more funds available in order to accelerate electrification. So that's something that we'll be discussing with city staff over the next couple of months as we work to formulate a plan on how to deploy that capital. So let's see, if we go to the next slide, it's just a timeline for your reference. So we have a few of these RFPs, the first 3 that we issued in October, and they'll be going through their kind of shortlisting and negotiation processes with the counterparties. The black boxes or the dark gray boxes are when we plan to come back to the board and request your approval for contracts, assuming we have contracts we want you to approve. With the Piedmont electrification project, our hope is to come back in December, if not January, to get approval on that, and then create kind of an open call for projects early in 2023 as we solidify that offer. We will plan to launch the energy efficiency program at the end of the first quarter, to launch the e-bike program in July of 2023, and the zero and medium and heavy duty loan project will start to be built in 2023, and our requirement is that it comes online by July of 2024. So those are a few of the programs that we wanted to give you all an update on, and we'll be coming back with action items in the coming months.
Great, thank you, JP. Appreciate the update. Colleagues, are there any questions for staff on this update? Director Hannon?
Yeah, JP, on the e-bike program, where you're setting aside 40% of the funds for those that are care participants, and that would be funds that they would be able to utilize to purchase an e-bike. That's my understanding. What is the cost of an e-bike?
So they vary. E-bikes can be as low as $1,200 to $1,500, and they can go up to $3,000 or $5,000. It varies.
And the funds that are set aside for those care participants, would that cover 100% of the cost of the e-bike?
So that is something that we have requested, that the project proposals come back to us with the proposed incentive level necessary to kind of spur the adoption that we want to see. There's going to be a balance there, but that's something that we're looking to, implementers of e-bike programs to propose to us, and as part of our evaluation.
I mean, I want to say I support the program. Anything we can do to provide these services and or equipment to those that are most vulnerable in our community, I certainly support. But 40% on an item that's several $1,000s in some cases to folks that are struggling just to kind of get by, seems like it will be a challenge.
I think I'll just pipe in there that the landscape is changing for e-bikes, and that recently there was a sale on Rad Power Bike's most basic model that brought the price down to $499. And then if you had a referral code, $450. I know a lot of people who took advantage of that. And the opportunity for people for whom car ownership is a huge burden, and we know that even maintenance of and ownership of a car can cost upwards of $12,000 per year outside of just, other transportation costs. I think I appreciate this incentive program. Vice Chair Lopez, questions?
Well, more of a comment. Would this be appropriate time, or should we take public comment first?
Let's go take public comment. So, Mr. Clerk, has anyone submitted electronic comment on this item?
There has not been electronic public comment submitted for this item.
Very good. And members of the public, you can use the raise hand feature in Zoom if you would like to be recognized. If you're calling in, press *9. And seeing no hands raised, go ahead, Member Lopez.
Thank you so much. And I have a few comments on e-bikes. First of all, I think this is a great step forward. This is, I think, another way of decarbonizing really society in general. It's another solution. But there are a couple of things that I would want to, raise my hand and say we need to have a few strings attached. One of them being that we really need the cities to update their bike and ped master plans or provide a path forward for dedicated bike lanes. And so, I know we're going to be giving these to individuals, but I think we need to do something with the cities to say, we'll give like these many bikes to these many individuals in your city if you make your city more bike friendly, which many of our cities are not. If you make your city safer for bicyclists and so forth, I think there has to be some sort of, if we're going to do our part, I think some of the cities need to demonstrate that they're doing theirs. And I believe that some are, and I'm thinking that there's also opportunity to do better. So I think there needs to be some sort of shared responsibility with cities. And then the other thing too is there's different kinds of e-bikes. I actually own one. I purchased it for about $700 a number of years ago. And I intentionally purchased my e-bike from a local manufacturer that was based in Fremont. That was there were many options, but I chose to give people jobs locally, and I would prefer that we would have a preference for companies that are local in all things that we do. So that would be something that I'd like to make sure is emphasized if it isn't already being emphasized. And the other thing too is some partnerships with like Bike East Bay or other bicycle coalitions for providing classes that would, we can partner with them and say, here's bicycle safety, classes that are offered, by these nonprofits, and encourage people who are going to be using the e-bikes to take these classes, because e-bikes can get quite fast quickly. They're pretty fast in my opinion. And so we just want people to be safe. And I think that may even reduce our liability. If we do this, I think there has to be that and the helmets that go with it. So it's a full wrap when we think about how we want to move forward. So those are just some of the things that I hope we have some markers for.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lopez. Director Monroe.
I just wanted to piggyback on Director Lopez's comments. I really appreciate both. I mean, helmets, please. I mean, they have to be, obviously. Yes, please. But the question about bike lanes gets very, very complicated. I mean, I know that for all of us dealing with transportation plans, these can be difficult to say the least. They're one of the points of most contention in cities, I think. Maybe not most, I don't know. Anyway, there are a lot of contention. So I guess I would be concerned that penalizing cities, the devil's in the details with the transportation plans, and penalizing cities when the connection between e-bikes and transportation isn't going to be clear to the very people who are complaining about it, I think is a little problematic. I appreciate the direction and I support that. I guess my question is how, if the goal is to have complete streets, which I think it is, and the goal is to have more e-bikes, I wonder if we can send the solution to that to staff and then also to staff in conjunction with our member cities. Does that make sense? I'm going to assume it does. I'm done.
Thank you, Director Monroe. Chair Eldred.
Thank you, Chair Martinez. I wish when I didn't get an answer that I just could assume it was understood. That's awesome. This was the other topic that we had a really robust discussion on, and I'll save our comments until after, but there were some questions in there that we really wanted to get some clarification on. Really specifically looking at the municipal electrification program, and really just this is a very exciting thing that's happening, and we want to congratulate Member Kavanagh City for the ambitious way that they're participating. It's really cool. We are wondering about the ability to balance this with other opportunities from other member cities within the service territory, and what other strategies EBC is pursuing to help spread this out to other cities, because it's quite cool. And just really looking at a quarter of the available funds going to this one program is, I mean, it's pretty significant. We definitely recognize that there are technical gains and expertise that we can gain from this process, and it is a near-term opportunity to leverage, but we're curious about strategies to bring that out to the other member cities and other opportunities within our territory. And wanted to hear a little bit more, or wondering when we would see more information on how different parts of our member cities and unincorporated territories are finding out about these opportunities, and ways for each of our different municipalities to find out about it and apply, develop proposals, that kind of thing. So just hoping you could expand a little bit on that.
JP, do you want to take that?
Sure. So we meet with our city sustainability staff on a monthly basis through our Muni Pals meeting. We talked about this week, or last week. So we're kind of constantly talking with our cities, and not talking with everybody in every city, but we talk with our colleagues at city staff, and they're the ones who help us find the right folks to talk with in other city departments. We've also been running our municipal electrification program, which has a technical assistance element for a while, which is around electrifying city buildings. And so that's why I say through the course of running that, it has come up that like accessing capital for some of these projects can be problematic. So kind of building off programs that we've been running and have been getting feedback from cities about where some of those hurdles lie. And that helps us build a foundation for our next set of activities. As discussed at the CAC, our tendency is to action. So if we've got a project that can use the capital, then let's use it and figure out where some of the hurdles may lie, and solve those problems. And as stated, if we've got a lot of interest in that, that's a good problem to have, and we would make some more funding available so that we can try to meet as many projects as possible.
And I'll just pipe up that as a board member, I have brought this program and what Piedmont is doing back to my city manager, back to our public works department, and I've asked our city council to consider this funding in our next CIP process and our next process of deciding what our priorities are as a city. Even though I'm not going to be there, I want them to make sure that this funding is available. And as JP said, there are more bites at the apple, the board can absolutely consider, and I'm sure staff will recommend that the pot is increased so that everyone has this opportunity that PFAS doing. And I hope everyone's looking at their pool heaters right now, and when those are expiring, because I know that's what I asked my city and school district to do. We share campus, so we're definitely, everyone involved in our operations and management is aware of this pot of money and all the great things it can do. But I appreciate the question, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. We it's just really cool, and we do hope that this continues and gets more budget moving forward. And it's a really great thing. And yes, helmets.
Great. And then, did you have more questions or comments on this item?
We don't have any other questions. All the other comments were just very positive and supportive, and grateful to staff. And there were plenty of comments that were made to staff during the meeting that I don't feel need to be reiterated here, because they heard them during the feedback during that time. So.
Great, thank you so much. Seeing no other hands raised, we're going to go ahead and thank staff. Oh, JP, you've got one more thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to address the issues that were raised about the e-bike program. So we are evaluating bike safety and the training protocols, as well as kind of local preferences. There's a balance in local preference as well around availability and the cost. So that's something that we'll certainly take into consideration. As far as kind of tying funding allocation to different city bike lane proposals or bike lane availability, we've been tending towards making our programs as widely available to all of our cities and residents as possible. So I think that would be where we are trying to go with this, but certainly open to discussions and feedback, and happy to have a conversation about that as well.
Seeing no other hands raised, we'll go ahead and move it along. Thank you, JP, and to all of your staff for the many programs that we are running and piloting at this time. Next up, we have an item that I requested. This is for appointment of a chair and vice chair, because I knew this was going to be my last board meeting as chair. I know that I spoke briefly with Vice Chair Lopez before the meeting, and she believes that she will still be a member of this body in December and is available to chair at that time. However, I still think it would be prudent to appoint an interim chair and vice chair to take over in the instance, for any reason, Vice Chair Lopez cannot be here in December, and certainly for January, as we're still working out newly composed boards, and I know our city's assignments may still be in question at that time, but things, as the dust settles, I think it would be good to have an interim chair and vice chair that can be reaffirmed in the future when the newly composed board is formed, and that is the item. So did you have any questions, Member Lopez?
No, I just a few comments, if I may.
Sure.
Well, first of all, Chair Martinez, I want to thank you so much for the many years of service that you've given to EBCE, from committee meetings to JPA launch to standing up this organization. You have been there, you've been the glue, and you have been somebody that I deeply admired all these years and all your work here with this organization. And I'm very sad that this is your last meeting, but I want to express my gratitude to you today. I also am terming out on this San Leandro City Council December 31st. So I will be here for the one more meeting in December if I can have the pleasure of the board to go ahead and chair that last meeting of my term. And then I will also bid adieu next month.
And Member Lopez, you were another member who was here from the very beginning at the steering committee before this entity was even a thing. So there were others of us there as well, and it's been quite a journey, and it is just very heartwarming to see that we are in such a solid place as an agency, and with our reserves, our finances, all of the PPA agreements under our belts, and without a ton of controversy, knock on wood. So well done, everyone, and thank you for the team effort, and very much huge thank you to staff as well. So colleagues, if there's any, let's check in for public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item, which is the appointment of an interim chair and vice chair? Please go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom, or press *9 if you're calling in. And seeing no raised hands, is there any electronic comment that has been submitted, Mr. Clerk?
There's no written public comment submitted for this item.
Okay, thank you. We will close public comment at this time. I saw a hand raised by Chair Eldred.
I would be hard pressed to express the level of respect and gratitude and admiration that as an individual I hold for both of our members here who are terming out. I'll get a chance to say goodbye to Karina at the next meeting, but Dan, you're amazing. And you have been an absolute inspiration, not only in this body, but throughout your entire political career. You have absolutely led the way on so many issues, and you have fought so hard and been a phenomenal role model as a woman, as a person trying to make actual change, as somebody who I have never questioned like the depth and like genuineness of how you fight and what you fight for. And just as a human being, I wanted to say thank you for all of the young women coming up who can look to you as somebody who has truly been a leader. And I look forward to seeing whatever it is you do next, because you are an absolute just blessing and a strength to every room you walk in. And I want you to know that you have the love and respect of the Community Advisory Committee, but also from a personal perspective, I just very deepest respects.
Oh, you were so kind. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you as well, as another person who was there from the very beginning. And to really dove in deep and learn so much about the procurement markets and every detail about the grid and everything it takes to be an expert in this area. So this is not an easy board to be on. So I appreciate all of you for diving in on these difficult topics. But they're, yep.
Nick, who's not here.
Yes.
Wanted to inquire to see if you were available as a private citizen to just for a short period of time to come to the December meeting.
What day is that?
That's the December meeting. And receive something.
Like a hamburger, or I'll check my schedule, but is it the 21st?
It's the 21st on Wednesday, 21st.
Okay. I'll double check, but I'm going to try to make myself available on that day if I am in town. I may not be in town, but I will give my RSVP.
Even just for 10-15 minutes.
Okay. And I will be at the executive committee meeting on December 2nd in person, I believe. We're having it, but I will try to make it on the 21st if I'm not out of town already. Okay, so well, to get to the appointment of a chair and vice chair, and again, this is in the absence of our existing vice chair, Member Lopez. Well, we need these folks, but with your indulgence, colleagues, I'd like to make a nomination for chair for Dan Ariola, a representative from the city of Tracy, who has served on our executive committee and was a stalwart champion in getting us to incorporate the city of Stockton, and has done so much work on the surface and behind the scenes on behalf of this agency. So I would like to make that nomination if there's no objection. Are there any other nominations? Member Lopez, I see a hand raised.
Well, I'd like to second that, but I'd like just to clarify that would start in January if I'm not available in December. Is that correct?
Correct. It would start after you are no longer with the board. If you don't come in December, though, we're going to let him chair the meeting.
I will be there. I will be there in December to chair the meeting.
Okay, very good. So seeing no other nominations, we will take my nomination as a motion and Vice Chair Lopez's second. And we'll go ahead and.
If I may just quickly.
Oh, sorry.
Speech.
Ariola, please take the floor.
Thank goodness I will accept the nomination, but also wanted to extend my gratitude to you and to this entire organization for taking a risk in our new communities and for allowing us in kind of this geographic area where it is incredibly challenging, where it's incredibly purple, where we face so many of the problems without having previously had solutions. And so it has been an honor and a privilege to work alongside you and others to bring a breath of fresh air into the Central Valley. I look forward to continuing those efforts. You have incredibly large shoes to fill. Thank you for everything you have done, and I will try my absolute best. But thank you to this organization, and I am committed to working for all of Alameda County and for the future of San Joaquin County.
Great, thank you. And we already asked for public comment, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to the clerk for a vote, and this is for the to appoint the chair.
Great, thank you. Second. Alameda County. Albany?
Yes.
Sure. Dublin?
Aye.
Fremont?
Yes.
Hayward?
Aye.
Livermore?
Very definitely aye.
Where?
Aye.
Oakland?
Aye.
Piedmont?
Aye.
Pleasanton?
Aye.
Tracy?
Yes.
Union City? San Leandro?
Aye.
Here we go.
Aye.
Motion approved.
All right, so now we've got vice chair, and I'd like to open up the floor for nominations. I see a hand raised by Member Cow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to nominate Jen Kavanaugh from City of Piedmont as our interim vice chair.
Right, any other hands raised? Okay, I'll take that as a motion in that case. Is there a second on that nomination?
Seconded.
I have a second from Member Ariola. Member Hannon, did you want to make a comment?
Just a second.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion from Member Cow, the second from Member Ariola. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Just 1 second.
I apologize. Member Kavanaugh, do you want to speak? We call the roll and to accept the nomination.
It's too late.
This is okay, you can speak.
Thank you. I do accept the nomination and I appreciate the interim role. And, you know, as a council, because of the delay in getting election results certified, we won't probably be able to make our council liaison assignments until possibly into January. So I've been excited about my participation in this board, and it's been a lot to learn. And so I really am grateful to everyone who's been here from the beginning. So I appreciate this nomination, and I would love to be able to work with y'all going forward. Thank you.
All right, now we can go ahead and call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County? Albany?
Yes.
Berkeley? Dublin?
Aye.
Fremont?
Yes.
Hayward?
Aye.
Livermore?
Aye.
Newark?
Aye.
Oakland?
Aye.
Piedmont? Thank you. Pleasanton?
Aye.
Tracy?
Yes.
Union City? Alexandra?
Aye.
Here
Aye.
Motion is approved.
All right, we got through that unanimously for both of those items. Next up is board member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. Colleagues, does anyone have a wish for a future agenda? Member Monroe.
This wasn't a future member. I was not going to ask for another agenda. I was just going to say thank you to this board. Like you, this is my last meeting. I'm off the board. It got, I think, 3 weeks left, something like that. And I just want to appreciate, I've said a number of times what a heavy lift this is. I appreciate staff enormously. I appreciate the very thoughtful questions from from my colleagues here, from the other directors. I've learned a lot. This is really serious work we're doing. I feel like it's changing. This is how we change the planet, and I appreciate having been part of it. And thank you all.
And we appreciate you as well, Member Monroe. Your presence on this board has been net positive, absolutely. Director Nero.
Thank you, and thank you to Chair Martinez for your service. And like you, my 9.5 years is coming to the end on the Pleasanton City Council. We have term limits, and my term will end on December 20th. So the day before, and I believe they're taking steps to have council members sit in, take my place. If not, they may ask me to come back. I don't know about voting, but that's another story. I'd like to also say thank you. I have really appreciated the complexity of this. And one of the things I talk about a lot is the passion of our staff for the vision and really making the world, making Alameda County a better place via the electrification and all the great programs. And it's really been a privilege to see that, as well as to learn about all these wonderful things that will all benefit all of us, including out here on the East County, which sometimes gets forgotten. But anyway, so I thank you all, and keep up the good work. Those of you staying on, moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Narroman. We appreciate you for your many years of service, your stewardship, your hard-hitting questions, and your obvious care for those community members that you serve. Thank you for all that you do. Vice Chair Lopez.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate Member Monroe and Member Narum for all of your work. I hope that for those people who will be departing this year, if you can make the December meeting, I will be requesting that there'll be a little gathering in advance of the meeting to celebrate the years and have a festive moment, a celebratory moment for the impact that we have made collectively as a group. And then, we'll earmark some time in the beginning of the agenda to recognize all formally at the meeting. So if you can mark your calendars, and then again, we'll do that in the beginning. So if you want to leave and not stay for the full meeting, then you can. So just wanted to put a placeholder if you're all available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lopez, and of course, your many years of service and your leadership in your community and here on this board, and diving in deep with all the issues from day one. I recall being on that 38-member steering committee with you.
Yeah.
We've come a long, long way. Director Kumagai.
I'll keep this short and sweet. This is also my last meeting with EBCE, but it's a organization near and dear to my heart. I'll be leaving City Council by December 20th, and I just want to extend my thanks to the staff for all the work that you do to advance our mission and vision such a very complicated and kind of spearheading kind of organization. And I want to extend my deep gratitude to my colleagues here for putting in the time and effort to make this a reality and to really, advance clean energy for our Bay Area residents. We're better for it. I've enjoyed working with you, and I look forward to working with you all again in the near future on other projects.
Yes, thank you, Director Kuligai, for all of your service to the communities. We appreciate you too. Chair Eldred.
Thank you. I did not realize it was so many people's last meetings, and that's crazy. So all of you out there in District 1, like I had a huge honor to be able to be the homeless service liaison in your area during COVID. That was exciting. I'm really, it's like there's huge, wonderful things that are happening in your areas, and you are not invisible or forgotten at all. Like, you're doing really incredible work, and we absolutely love it. I do have a request that whoever is coming after you, that you connect them with your CAC member. There are folks in these districts who really need to have, especially with such massive turnover and such a huge loss. Everyone who's going to come is going to be great, but you all are amazing people. And so please connect with your CAC member to help get some orientation about what's going on and what has been showing up from your constituents. These are really, really engaged folks. Like, they're really engaged folks, and they are dedicated, and they are out there working and talking with people. So thank you from all of us for the just so much work and so much dedication and creativity and like work. This thing takes work, and you all have been just phenomenal. And thank you so much from all of us. And best of luck in all that you're doing.
Great, thank you, Chair Eldred. Did I see a hand raised in the room? Director Cal.
Thank you. I want to make a quick announcement before I do that. I want to just share in the thanks of all the board members, council members who are not returning and will not be on EBC board next year. And just thank you for the commitment you made both in your city and for EBCE. And we're gonna have a lot of turnover, a lot of coming up to speed for new people next year. But thank you for not every council member on every city council would want to be on this board, but you all did want to be because of your commitment. And so I think we should just acknowledge that and thank everybody for their great commitment and good work and contribution. Can I take this time to just make a quick announcement?
Yeah.
Over this past weekend, the City of Oakland, in cooperation with California Interfaith Power and Light and the U.S. Green Building Council, opened up our first climate resilience hub in the City of Oakland, which may be either the first or one of the first in the East Bay, or maybe the Bay Area. It's at a church, Faith Baptist Church in East Oakland. And we had a great ribbon cutting, and there's solar and battery storage and a whole bunch of other things, air filtration. And we hope it's one of many climate resilience hubs throughout the Bay Area, throughout the state, throughout the country. And unfortunately, the need for these will only grow. And I just want to mention that and thank the nonprofit partners who have been part of this in Oakland for this exciting new thing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I see a hand raised by Director Cox.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. You guys are amazing. I've learned a lot. I'm still going to continue on the board as long as I know. So I will be one and welcoming the new directors coming. But I just want to say thank you to the staff. Thank you for all the efforts. It resonates with being able to make a difference in our community. And I'm just very thankful for all of you here, present, before, and coming after. That together we're going to help build a better community that will be a great environment, climate-wise, pushing forward for more electrification. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all.
Thank you, Director Cox. Director Hannon.
Yes, Madam. Madam Chair, I just wanted to thank you for your outstanding work chairing this board. I met you a number of years ago when I first got on to Stop Waste, and your professionalism and your leadership skills have only continued to improve over these years. And as mentioned by my colleagues, you're a model to many folks that want to serve the public, and we've all learned from your experiences. So thank you for your service to the board, and thank you to my colleagues who will no longer be on this board. Your attention to detail was always appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just so everyone knows, I will be shadow staffing whoever represents my city on this board, because it is a steep learning curve. And I expect that they may have questions for me, and I'm more than willing to answer. I thank and respect all of you. I will try to make it to the December 21st meeting. I hope that everyone else departing will make an attempt to do that as well. And thank you all. Have a very good evening, a holiday, and this is not goodbye. See you soon.
See you all in person, all departing. I'll see you at the next meeting place. Bye.
See you later. Love y'all. Bye.
I'll see you on December
Thank you,
21st,
everyone.
Rich. I mean, Trish, Sean. Thanks. Okay.
Okay.